And so came to an end the courier's exploits in the frontier. With Rancor and Blackthorn dead, and the NCR in complete disarray, much of the exiles disbanded. However, there were those who stayed behind. There were some who saw it as an opportunity to begin life as a vigilante peacekeeper, whilst others took the dark path and became the very thing they vowed to destroy. Whilst the airport was overrun by scavengers, they did not take up arms against the NCR civilians. Soon after, what remained of Goose Hollow became a town run by the scavs. It prospered, but would, on one fateful day, burn to the ground as Junkfleet's mayor sought to erase all traces of the exiles. Ashley Jane Tara, the only surviving member of the Wolf Pack, saw herself once again following a pack as she joined the courier on his march through the frontier. Though she wished for stillness, she found little comfort in the idle tidings of civilian life. After the courier returned to the Mojave, she found herself at a loss. She turned to peacekeeping efforts in a desperate attempt to keep herself above board. After the collapse of the exiles, Gray took it upon himself to try and rebuild. He took those still loyal to Blackthorn and formed a new splinter cell of the exiles. His efforts led to little success, as with no serious threats and no mission, the commanding officers became restless and wasted limited resources on gambling and other obscenities. Gray left the exiles in response. He burned his uniform and traveled to Junkfleet, where he spent the rest of his days trading and drinking. With Valerius dead and Ostia destroyed, the Northern Legion quickly disbanded. Most simply integrated into the native scav population, or used their fighting skill to form raider gangs. A choice few returned to the Legion fort, where Caesar had them put to the cross for their failure. As the war subsided, Junkfleet began to prosper. No longer relying on selling information on factions, they were able to begin more legal operations. Utilizing Junkfleet's water reservoirs and ample space, large swaths of the underground were turned into hydroponic areas. Though the courier would never meet the mayor would eventually become a very powerful figure, albeit from the shadows. With Tag dead, there was no one to keep the slums under control. The crime in the slums soon spilled out into the rest of Junkfleet, driving law-abiding citizens away while simultaneously drawing in criminals. Junkfleet would soon become known as the center of organized crime in Portland. With no guardian to protect them, the Church of Eternal Life was quickly wiped out by violent outsiders in search of their treasure. Irvington continued to prosper, even as more and more people began to grow sick. After years of suffering and dozens dead, Dr. Pavus finally created a cure for the disease. With the plague ended, Irvington would grow to rival Junkfleet in size and influence, becoming a beacon of civilization in Portland. Under the foreman's leadership, Salttown remained wholly independent after the war. With the need for salt decreasing, working conditions for the miners improved, as did their salaries. To this day, the frontier depends solely on Salttown for their salt, and many are worrying over the diminishing returns the mine brings each year. The Trocali didn't think anything could stop the party. The courier did. The courier saved Violet Osborne from the hell of slavery. While she dreamt of returning to Shady Sands, life as a waitress gave her perspective. Labor improvements and pay increases would be her first order of business when she returned to Osborne Metallurgy. Though Quentin and the others were dead, Sanctuary's radio message would continue to broadcast on a loop. Hopeful robots would arrive only to discover the scrap the courier had left behind. With the NCR's victory in the frontier, Jolene slipped quietly back into the ranks of the NCR Espionage Division, assisting in the cleanup. America's internal doubt continued to push her away from everyone. Unable to resolve it, she grew distant. She didn't belong with the Crusaders. Maybe she didn't belong anywhere. She decided on her next scouting mission to disappear. No one would miss her. Though he would never truly forgive himself for Sarah's death, Lot was soon able to face the bright light ahead. Through his time with the courier, he had come to terms with the death of his only family and slipped peacefully into the darkness. After the courier left the frontier, life continued as usual for Wrench and Bolt. Though her future jobs were safer and more financially rewarding, she would look back warmly on your adventures together. And so it came to an end, the courier's magnum opus, a final adventure to the unknown. The road to Hoover Dam now lay before the courier, an empty slate to be carved. Because war never changes.